Hey everyone, welcome back to our episode 4. If you haven't made it to episode 4 with us, it means you are willing to pause and ask the big, uncomfortable, beautiful questions. Who am I now? And who am I becoming in this decade of my life? For me, the toughest part of any journey isn't the work. It is having the courage to take that very first step into the unknown. Because once we do, it does get easier afterwards. The fear of starting something new begins to fade. And instead, joy, curiosity, and momentum start to settle in. So, if you are here walking this path with us, be very proud of yourself. You have already done the hardest part. You have taken the leap of faith. You are no longer at the edge. In episode 1, we traced the roots of our identities, exploring how our health, family, culture, and physical location shape them. In episode 2, we exposed the emotional masks we wear just to survive, to be accepted, to avoid being too much or not enough. In episode 3, we dug into how our careers, intentionally chosen or circumstantially fallen into, write our identities for us, even when they no longer fit. And today, we come home to the roles we hold in our closest relationships, not to blame or glorify them, but to understand how they have shaped the woman we have become. So we ask, how do we hold space for these roles? Daughter, sister, best friend, partner, wife, and mom, while still honoring the woman inside us who longs to be heard, seen, and expressed. We will walk through these roles in the order many of us live them. Daughter, and then sister, maybe best friend, maybe partner, wife, and maybe mother. And in each one, we will listen for the voice of the woman that so often gets buried under these roles. So, being a daughter is where it all begins. We are daughters before we are anything else. Before we know who we know who we are to our parents. This role is given to us, not chosen, and it lays the foundation for everything. We learn early how to get love or not, what is acceptable, what is too much, where affection is offered and where it is withheld. Maybe you were the obedient daughter, always praised for doing the right thing. Maybe you were the emotional sponge, the one who kept everyone together. Or maybe you were the one who always felt like a disappointment, no matter how hard you tried. Our identity begins to form around how we are seen by our parents. And for many of us, we spend years, even decades, trying to earn their love and acceptance that should have been unconditional. Some of us still carry guilt for pulling away from our parents who never supported us. Some of us maintain relationships out of duty, not desire. Some of us are still grieving the parents we wish we could have. And a few of us are so lucky to have our parents' unconditional love and support. But just know, this is not the reality most of us are trying to heal from. At 40, the role of daughter doesn't disappear. But now we can ask, is being a good daughter costing me my peace? Am I still performing for a version of love I never received from my parents? And do I believe I'm allowed to define who I am outside of my family's narrative? My reflection? After years of self-discovery, I realized that so many of my struggles, my patterns, my fears, Even my ambitions were rooted in the role I played as a daughter. For me, this role was the foundation of my identity, and I spent my 10s, 20s, 30s, and even now into my 40s trying to strengthen that foundation to hold the structure together and stop it from collapsing. The impact parents have on their daughter's identity is huge. Before we become a mother, we are first a daughter, and what we learn, feel, and carry from that role shapes everything we might pass on to our daughters. That's why, more than anything, the decision to have a child is not just about timing or biology. It is about our self-awareness. Now in our 40s, the challenge isn't to stop being a daughter. It is to be one without losing the woman we have fought to become. It is learning to accept or love our parents or let go of what never was while refusing to shrink ourselves to stay in roles that no longer fit. It is holding space for our past without letting it dictate our present. Because the truth is, we can honor where we come from and still choose who we want to be. That is the real work now in our 40s, balancing our roots with our wings. The second role that many women take on is being a sister. Sisterhood is our first experience of peer dynamics within the family. Whether we are the oldest, the baby, or somewhere in the middle, we carry unspoken roles. The protector, the fixer, the responsible one, the forgotten one, the wild one, the glue. In childhood, sisters are often our fiercest rivals, or if we are lucky, our safest confidants. They reflect us in ways our parents never could. Raw, unfiltered, intimate. And yet, these roles within siblings dynamics can also become boxes that we feel we can't grow out of. Maybe you have always been the one who has it all together, or the one expected to drop everything when someone else is in crisis. Maybe your voice got quiet early, overshadowed or dismissed. And maybe in your 40s, you are realizing you are still playing that role, even when it is no longer serves you. Even when you have outgrown the version of yourself your family still sees. This is the decade to ask, can I still be a sister while being true to the woman I have become? Not just the girl I was at 14. Because sometimes our role as a sister gets frozen in time. We keep playing the same part, the peacemaker, the fixer, the quiet one, the responsible one, whatever role we were given in the family story. But the fact is we grow, we change, we become women with our own truths, our own values, our own ways of living. The challenge now is finding a balance where we can still love our siblings and be there for them, but not shrink ourselves to fit an old version of who we used to be. It is about being a sister and being whole. Not choosing one over the other, but making room for both in a way that feels honest to our soul. Then it comes best friend role. Being a best friend is the first role that some of us consciously choose. If daughter and sister are assigned roles, the best friend is often our first chosen one. And it can be one of the most intimate, pure, identity-shaping relationships we ever have. Let me share something personal. My sisters are my best friends forever. But because of the age gap between us, they were part of my childhood and adolescence that I couldn't really share with them since they were older or younger than me. That space was filled by my best friend from elementary school. She walked with me through crushes, fears, hopes, and questions about growing up. Those conversations, that closeness, helped shape who I was becoming. Because when you are navigating identity in a world full of expectations, your best friend becomes your reflection, your first safe place, the person who knows your voice before you have fully claimed it. Our friendship continued into our teens, where our biggest joy was to sit together, smoke a hookah, drink tea, and talk for hours. After all those years, with lots of ups and downs, the distance, the oceans between us, she is still my best friend. We haven't seen each other in years, but in my happiest or saddest moments, I still wish she were with me. Just the two of us, sitting with the tea and the hookah, that would be the best therapy for me. That's all I would need to feel strong again and keep going. Hi, Seppi. Hope you hear this someday. Love you, girl. So, back to our conversation. If you are one of the lucky ones with long-lasting friendships, that's a beautiful gift. But even friendship role can quietly become a role we perform, one we may eventually outgrow or need to redefine. Have you always been the one who listens but never speaks? The one who cancels her plans to be with your friend? The one who's always emotionally available but has rarely been asked, "How are you doing?" In our 40s, it is time to ask, is this friendship helping me grow or holding me in an old story of who I used to be? At this stage in life, female friendship should feel like a fuel, not a performance. It should honor the woman we are today, not just the girl we once were. The best friendships now aren't about constant presence or perfect understanding. They are about mutual respect, space to grow, and the kind of love that says, "I see you exactly as you are." No judgment, no questions. If the friendship empowers us, supports us, and reminds us of our strengths, then it is not just friendship, it is sisterhood. And that is the kind of connection worth keeping close in our 40s. Then we grow into the role of partner or wife. It sounds like a milestone, a chapter we step into with intention. And for many of us, this role becomes one of the most defining and the most complicated roles. Because for most of us, it's not just a choice, it is an extension of our identity at the time. Who we believed we were, who we thought we were supposed to be, what we thought love should feel like. We accept someone as our partner not just because of who they are, but because of who we are in that moment, or more often, who we think we are. If our identity is rooted in people pleasing, we may choose someone who needs saving, or someone who expects us to disappear into their world. If our identity is shaped by wounds, we might mistake drama for connection, or silence for safety. If we haven't yet learned to love ourselves deeply, we may choose someone who mirrors that some lack of love back to us. And once we step into the role, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. The person we choose starts to shape us in return. Sometimes it is beautiful, when we feel encouraged, seen, uplifted. Other times it is draining, when we feel erased, small, or unworthy. That influence touches everything: our voice, our confidence, our creativity, our joy, and finally our identity. Because partnership is not neutral. Partnership is a living exchange of energy, day after day, and over time, it can either build the woman within us or slowly dismantle her. When we silence parts of ourselves to keep the peace, when we carry the emotional weight of a relationship that doesn't carry us back, when we dim our light so we won't outshine or upset our partner, we are not just adjusting, we are losing pieces of our identity. And those losses don't just stay in that relationship. They ripple outward into how we show up in the world, into our friendships, our parenting, our career, our body, our spirit, and our identity. This is why the choice of partner matters so deeply, not just for the love we receive, but for the woman we continue to become in that relationship. Because when the energy between two people is not aligned, it does not just cause tension, it drains life force. We feel it in our energy, in our lowered ambition, in the way our laugh fades over time, in the way our eyes lose their sparkle, in the way we stop dreaming, stop asking, and stop wanting more. That is the quiet erosion of womanhood under the wrong partnership. But it can also go the other way. The right relationship doesn't complete us, it reflects us. It holds space for our fullness. It cheers for our growth. It protects our becoming. And it encourages our silliness and goofiness because joy is part of the journey. And when we feel that kind of support, we don't lose energy, we gain it. We don't shrink, we expand. We don't forget who we are, we remember more clearly. So wherever you are in this relationship thing, single, married, dating, divorced, the invitation is the same. Let's look closely at the role we are playing. Is it aligned with the woman we are today? Does it feel true in our body? Does it make us more us or less? Because the relationship may be shared, but our identity is ours alone. And our identity deserves to be honored, nurtured, protected. The woman we are becoming isn't asking for perfect love. We are asking for honest alignment. We want a connection that doesn't cost us ourselves. Because the real partnership we are seeking is not just romantic. It is the one where our truth and our love can live in the same room, without one having to leave for the other to stay. And this is where the real reckoning begins, especially in our 40s. Because at this point in life, we can no longer ignore the quiet difference between the woman who picked that relationship and the woman who exists now. The version of us who chose that partnership may have needed safety, validation, rescue, or belonging. And there is no shame in that. We did our best with what we knew at the time. But now, with clearer eyes and a fuller sense of self, it is okay to ask, does this relationship still fit? Does this still feel like love or just a loyalty to an old story? This doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means redefining, rebuilding, reclaiming your space inside the relationship. But other times it does mean letting go. Not out of bitterness, but out of respect for who we have become. Because our growth deserves room, our truth deserves respect, and our love, yes, even our romantic love, deserves to meet the woman we are now, not the one we used to be. We are allowed to choose again, to update our boundaries, to be honest about what is no longer aligned, to want a partnership that doesn't just coexist, but co-evolves. So if you are feeling that tension, that tug, that inner knowing, trust it. Our body always knows when our spirit is being compromised. And in our 40s, we are not too late. We are right on time for the most honest, most aligned, most liberated version of love we have ever known. One that doesn't require us to abandon ourselves, but instead calls us all the way home. And finally, there is the role of mother, where love often quiets the voice of self. If we have become a mother, this role has likely reshaped our lives in the most profound ways. We have held bodies and hearts. We have made decisions that requires us to shrink, stretch, and pause our dreams. We have given love in a way that can feel holy and exhausting. But motherhood, while a gift, often comes with silent challenges. We are taught to be selfless, to put everyone else first, to wear exhaustion as a badge of honor. And in the process, we forget how to ask for what we need. Sometimes we forget how to even hear ourselves at all. So now, in our 40s, as children grow and their needs shift, we might suddenly find ourselves wondering, where did I go? And the more powerful question, can I reclaim myself now without guilt? And here is something else we don't talk about enough. We don't have to be a mother to be nurturing. We don't have to raise children to leave a legacy of love. And choosing not to become a mother, whether it was our decision or life's curveball, doesn't make us any less whole, wise, or woman. Let's be honest. Some women knew from a young age that we didn't want or could not be mothers. Not because we lacked love, but because we had a different story. Because we understood our energy had another destination. And that truth, when it is spoken out loud, still makes people uncomfortable. But being honest about our desires, especially the ones that go against what is expected of us, is not selfish. It is sacred. It is courageous. And not everyone dares to admit it. We need to normalize that motherhood is not the only way to love. That being maternal is not a requirement for being valuable. That opting out of this role doesn't mean opting out of impact, tenderness, or contribution. It simply means we listen to ourselves. And that is a form of leadership. And maybe the most radical act of all in this decade of awakening is this: to stop judging other women for the choices they made or didn't make. To let go of the unspoken rule book we were all handed and instead hold space for different journeys. Let's be real. Nothing is more hollow, more out of alignment with true motherhood than a woman who uses her role as a mother to shame another woman for not having children. That is not love. That is not wisdom. That is not strength. That is insecurity dressed up as superiority. And we are all too grown, too evolved, and too aware to keep playing that game. When we make room for every woman's truth, We expand what it means to be whole, even when her truth looks nothing like ours. And that is the kind of sisterhood that doesn't divide us, but heals us and unites us. So let's stop asking, why didn't she? And start saying, her choices aren't ours to question, they are ours to respect. That is how we honor not just womanhood, but each other. And as we stand in our 40s, the invitation is the same for all of us, regardless of being a mom or not, to choose boldly, to love truthfully, and to be honest about what we want and what we don't. Not just because it's brave, but because it is time. Whether you are a mother, never were, or chose not to be, your path is valid. Your love is real, and your identity is worthy of being seen, not just in service to others, but in full for yourself. To bring today's reflection full circle, let's talk about the woman within. It shouldn't be a choice between any of these roles and the woman within. It is about the power of and. So here is what I know to be true. These roles, daughter, sister, best friend, partner, wife, mother, they have shaped us. They have held our hearts. They have demanded our strengths. We don't have to choose between them and the woman within ourselves. This is not about either or. This is about and. We can be a good daughter and still have boundaries. We can be a best friend without betraying our own truth. We can be a devoted partner and still want space. We can be a loving mother and still hear our own dreams. This decade isn't about walking away from these roles. It is about showing up as a whole woman inside them. The voice of the woman within us, she's not trying to burn everything down. She's just asking to be heard, to be seen, to lead, to matter. So no matter how many of these roles we are still carrying, daughter, partner, friend, mother, it is our responsibility to pause and listen to the woman within, to find the balance between what these roles ask of us and what our soul is quietly longing for. Because true fulfillment doesn't come from choosing one or the other. It comes from honoring both. This is the decade to stop disappearing inside our roles and start bringing our full selves into them. The woman within us is not asking for a new life. She is asking to finally belong in the one we already have. Our roles may shift over time, but our identity deserves to stay rooted in the woman we truly are. So this week, let's spend some time and reflect on these questions. Are the roles we live aligned with the woman we truly are, or are they slowly drowning her out? And how can we start rebalancing the scale? Not by abandoning what matters, but by including ourselves in the equation. If you ever felt torn between staying loyal to any of these roles and staying true to yourself, you are not alone. Drop a comment and share your story if you have been walking that fine line between what you owe others and what you owe yourself. But for now, let the woman inside your roles speak. She's not new. She has just been waiting to take control without shame or guilt. Next week, we will talk about our body image in our 40s. We are coming for the real villain, society's wrapped lens on women's body. Because let's face it, society has normalized to constantly judge and control our bodies. Too curvy? Hide it. Too thin? Eat something. Wrinkles? Fix them. Stretch marks? Erase them. Aging? God forbid. From puberty to menopause, we have been judged, shamed, sexualized, and sold solutions to problems we never had. Society makes billions by feeding us body insecurities, then gaslights us by calling it empowerment. Well, we are done playing by the rules. See you all in the next episode and this exciting conversation on our body image.